In life, we are on a constant pursuit for our slice of the pie. The pie comes in many forms, whether it's starting a business, higher education, pursuing a career, raising a family, and the list continues. The burdens we face during our pursuit is lessened when we are financially fit. The Breadwinners created a platform where we can discuss finances and entrepreneurship in a judgment-free space. We're striving to encourage healthy financial discussions amongst our peers to capture our slice, until we no longer want a slice and would rather bake our own cake.
Man, real estate is such a big thing right now. And investing in real estate is super crazy. What's your thoughts on flipping like residential homes and duplexes?
Yeah, so no doubt about it, hottest real estate market maybe of all time. So there is significant opportunity there to invest in real estate in general when it comes to like flipping homes specifically. Mm-hmm. Because of lack of inventory right now, it's such a hot market that there are a lot of people doing it, and there's the barrier to entry right now is like, can you find a property? So great time to do it, good returns. We've seen new construction explode. Our guys that are doing fix and flips continue to do so and are making great returns. Establishing those early relationships and like finding whether it's wholesalers or working with dedicated realtors becomes key, because although it's a great time to get into it, finding the inventory right now is certainly a challenge. So yeah.
Just like anything else.
Yes.
Just like I love real estate because land appreciates, and when it appreciates, that means it's more money for us, right?
Yeah.
But when you flip a house versus buying and holding, that's when it stopped. And that's like a whole argument within itself. So what do you think which one do you prefer, flipping or do you prefer buying and holding?
I'll speak to it from the seat of the guy that is handing out the money a little bit.
Okay.
If you don't mind. So
no, go right ahead.
The pros to holding property is when we talk about like passive income, that's how you get that, right? Like at the end of the day, you can make a quick, finite amount of money doing a flip. And if you get really good and have multiple crews, you can go from one house to the next, even take down 4 to 6 at once, perhaps. Great way to become liquid very fast.
Yeah.
I think a lot of guys get their start in flipping with the goal of eventually parlaying that liquidity into buy and holds, which is long-term generational wealth, passive income. So there's definitely pros to each. I think I personally would prefer like the buy and hold stuff, because my goal for myself is to build a passive income stream where I can replace, whatever job I have well into the future, and also have something to pass down my kids when the time is right.
Absolutely, and that sounds like generational wealth.
Yeah.
But before we get too far into that, Kyle, let us know who you are, your business.
Yeah. I'm Kyle Chrisman. I work for a company called Fund That Flip out of Cleveland. We're downtown, right off in the AECom building by the Rock Hall, and I provide financing for real estate investment projects. We also have an accredited investor platform where someone can passively invest in real estate projects that we are financing. So I oversee quite a few territories for us right now, the Midwest markets, Texas, and then some of the East Coast markets as well. Other than that, I'm an entrepreneur as well. I have an entrepreneurial background.
Absolutely. So from an entrepreneurial background, your personal side, what's your slice of the pie?
So I do some passive investing in real estate. I'm invested in different cryptocurrencies as well.
Ooh, I love crypto.
Could talk about crypto for sure. And then I have a background as a business owner as well. So I did some seed funding, invested in a couple tech startups. as well. That's kind of my background.
Absolutely. You want your money to work for you.
Yes. Any way possible. If there is I'm always open to kind of learning and hearing about more investment opportunities as well, because if there's an opportunity for my cash to earn cash, I will listen attentively.
Compound interest is a beautiful thing.
Yes.
It certainly is.
Absolutely.
You know what? I don't know with our current market and from a housing perspective, with our current market, and we look at, like you mentioned, inventory. We look at interest rates. We look at it seems like people are quitting jobs, but people are buying houses. It's like, what, our economy, man, what's going on?
It's wild. And I can speak as like an expert in a very specific set of real estate. So without kind of overstepping my area of expertise too much.
Yeah.
What I see happening right now is money's everywhere, right? And the market's just simply oversaturated with cash. So if you're, a beginner or thinking about doing real estate, now's the time. And my assumption would be that window's probably going to start to gradually shrink a little bit, especially with some of the talks we've seen recently with like interest rates rising.
It's the same.
So that's kind of what I anticipate happening. But at least right now, there is simply too much money in the market when it comes to real estate. So if there was ever an opportunity where someone's maybe sitting there thinking, I've always wanted to do this, I have the resources to do this, I'm stuck, now is the time to do it for sure.
Wow, that's super interesting. You know what, let's stay on that. Okay. So what's a good place to start? If I wanted to get, let's say a duplex, a side by side.
Yeah.
Well, what's a good strategy for that?
Yeah, absolutely. So one thing that you could do right away, let's say in this example, someone doesn't own their first home, right? So they could buy a duplex, take a mortgage on that duplex, live in one side while they're fixing up and kind of tenanting out, renting out the other side. So now they're earning some cash flow. They're probably just breaking even then, right? So now you own property, you own an asset, a tangible asset with no mortgage payment. And then in theory, right, that will appreciate, especially once some work's been done to it to fix it up. Pull your cash back out, repeat that process, move to a new duplex, and then tenant the other side of that previous duplex, right? And you could continue that at scale or until you have enough liquidity and or assets to get a chunky loan to take down, maybe something a little bigger.
That is dope. That is dope, because if you're living for free and you don't have to pay your own mortgage, that's some pretty good cash.
Yeah.
Cash flow is like what we're after, right?
Yeah, I work with a gentleman that's fresh out of college, might be 21, and just started in that very same manner. Yeah, so super smart
Man,
way to get your start there.
I wish I can take it back 10 years.
Yes.
Well,
tell me about it.
It'd be like 12.
Yeah.
I wish.
Yep.
That is a pretty cool house hack, man. I think that is. So let's say when someone will do that, right? Mm-hmm. So let's walk through the process. So sure. At what point do they call you for funding?
So in that first example, they'd probably simply just be better off from an interest rate standpoint if it's going to be their mortgage, doing a conventional, call it like
an FHA loan?
Yeah,
okay.
Exactly.
Okay.
However, after a couple of those, when we can show and paper trail back, like, hey, there's some real estate investing experience here, that kind of opens them up to our business. We're a private real estate investment firm, right? So we will do true bridge loans, or a buy and hold, call it like 30-year option as well.
Okay.
Bank's always going to have the cheapest money. They also have the most hurdles and the biggest headaches and longest time runway to close, right? So a 60-day close to them might be a 14-day close to someone like us.
Oh, wow.
But to answer your question more specifically, once they build up that track record, they'll qualify for money from us, where we'll come in and we'll finance 90% of an acquisition, up to 100% of their rehab funds as well. Mm-hmm. And that project could be new construction, a duplex, a single family home that they want to take down, do some cosmetic touch-ups to it, and then flip it, especially as the market, what we're seeing right now is stuff is appreciating so quickly. So if you can find it, you can probably turn a pretty good profit. But even if the market were to come back, usually that's when we get more inventory, right? Once we get a little slowdown.
Yeah.
So if you have the ability to just acquire those, sit on them for 12 to 15 months, put some work into them, and then flip them, that's when we would kind of come into play there.
That's interesting. So one question I know everyone's going to ask, because I have the same question: how do you build that reputation to where? How do you build that reputation to where someone can come to you and get approved? Because in the beginning, I'm pretty sure it's really tough.
Yeah. So if you are like have zero experience papered out, the best place to start, there are real estate meetups that happen in every city across the country, right? So go to your local RIA meetups. There are Facebook groups. You can start, by wholesaling, taking a property, getting it under contract, charging an assignment fee, basically a quick markup, and then giving that to an investor to build experience, be around real estate, find a partner, right? That's another way. Like if someone's real hungry and is willing to maybe work for free just to get some experience on one or two, and then also acquire kind of the knowledge of how to execute a flip. But I would say just be around it, right? Like be in the market, make the phone calls, right? Like make those cold calls, like call investors, talk to everybody, and figure it out is honestly the way to do it.
Yeah, do the work.
Yep, you got it.
And that's tough.
No shortcuts, but if you can get to, if you can build up enough goodwill with someone that they're willing to come on maybe one or two with you and as nothing but a silent partner, but then, hey, we can tie back that person's experience to your deal now. It's like, oh, so-and-so's involved. Are they willing to be on the operating agreement with you? They are. Excellent. Now you're bringing, 20 deals of experience to something, even though technically it's your deal and it's the first one. So there's ways to do it.
Okay.
There's many different paths. None of them are easy, but some are definitely easier than others. And you find those opportunities just being where the deals are.
Yeah, so it's building those key relationships.
You got it.
And let's give a few examples of what are some of those relationships you need to build.
So definitely local realtors, wholesalers that we talked about a little bit. Figuring out, if you're in the car on the west side right here and driving around, and it's like, hey, that duplex, I can tell that someone did work to that duplex. Getting on Zillow or wherever and trying to back into who did that, like who executed that.
Oh, yeah.
Right? And like, I'm making that phone call. Hey, how did you do it? How did you get your start? And if I'm super passionate about it, I'm not stopping that, right? Like it's a kind of a 24/7, become inundated with it and obsessed with it a little bit. And then also what I would say is like, for a true beginner, make sure that, credit score is where it needs to be. Get the bank account right? Like have some liquidity to show, because when it comes to qualifying for loans, you may have all of the knowledge, but then there's that other piece too, which is like, we have to be able to paper this out, right? Financials need to look good, so that loan can ultimately move through the process.
So let's talk about that side of it, the financial side. Mm-hmm. So is there like a good credit score you got to be at, or does that work in conjunction with how much money you have?
Sure.
How does that work?
So with our process, it's a little different than if you were to go secure like true bank, a conventional mortgage financing. So a little less strict. We're still going to want our investors to be somewhere in the 630 and up range on something like that. Now the caveat is like, it looks a little different because I'm looking at credit, I'm looking at liquidity, and I'm looking at experience. And experience to me, when I'm determining whether or not I want to originate a loan to someone, experience is the first thing I look at. Have you done it before? How did you do it? And how successful were you at it? Text me some addresses. I want to see some of the finished work. Did you execute the project?
Oh, wow.
If so, some of those other things aren't as paramount. But typical, call it beginner investor profile for us, like to see somewhere between 35 to 100K in the bank, right? 630 and up credit score with 2 to 3 deals under their belt.
Okay.
That doesn't mean they were the ones steering the ship the entire way on those 2 to 3 deals, but it needs to paper a little bit to them.
And what do you mean by that paper?
Sure. So we'll get into the weeds just a little bit.
Just a little bit, yeah. 'Cause
Yeah.
I'm curious.
So investors that are in real estate have at least one entity, right? An LLC that they do their real estate work in, if not one for every project that they're doing.
Okay.
So again, if I'm new and I'm at a real estate meetup and I'm like, hey, I have some cash, I have no experience, and I'm trying to get a loan, like I will give you X percent, right? Let's say 15% of the upside of my project just for you to come in and be a certain percent owner of my entity so that they can use your experience to help me get approved for a loan, right? And so if you have a couple of those under your belt and then you come to me, I'll be able to see that paper trail of like, oh yeah, you're a part of so-and-so's LLC. We can verify that that person did in fact execute X amount of deals. Like, hey, you check the box, you're good on experience. So that's what I mean. If someone were to come to us and say like, hey, I've got all the money and I've got great credit and I have zero experience, I'm not saying, depending on how liquid, right? There's always exceptions to every rule. So if it was like $500,000 and it was a fix and flip here in Cleveland where we're talking, maybe a couple $100,000 all in, like, yeah, that's a very low risk deal. I will try to get that one done. But for the most part, we need at least papered out experience for one or two deals.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
I mean, you got to cover all your bases.
Absolutely.
That is really big. So how did you get into real estate?
Oh man, good question, because it kind of happened all at once and very suddenly. So I always wanted to do real estate. I never took the time to like dive in and actually learn about it. When I graduated from college, went like the tech sales route and then like went the entrepreneurial route after that. And real estate was, honestly, at the time, it was more like, I want to have rentals without really knowing anything that went into it.
Yeah.
And then I got presented with an opportunity to come on board at Fund That Flip when I decided to re-enter the workforce. And just got honestly really lucky to knock it out of the park on the first try. So real estate was always there in the back of my mind. It's something that I always knew I would do, but that was a very loose, like, yeah, I'm gonna do real estate one day. And wouldn't have been able to tell you like any of the strategy behind it or how I was gonna accomplish that. And came on board and then got absolutely addicted to every,
aspect,
part of the process. Yeah.
That's pretty cool. So what's your way, how do you assess a property?
Good question. So luckily I don't have to do this usually myself. We have a team of dedicated underwriters that are going to help our investors and kind of be the sanity check on if a deal is good or not. Mm-hmm. But when I'm thinking about a property, right, I'm pulling up comparables and you don't need like a top of the line system to really do it. Like Zillow usually is fine. You can they have some features where you can kind of see what's sold in the area and what's selling in the area. But with how kind of dynamic real estate can be, and it really can be like a block by block kind of thing, right? Especially in some big cities. I'm looking at the subject property, the price per square foot in that given area, the bed bath count, the square footage of the actual property, and then I'm finding 3 or 4 comparables, like stuff that's sold maybe in the past 12 months. That is similar to what my finished project will be. And that gives me an idea of, hey, I think I can sell this thing for X and here's all the data that shows it. I think I got a good deal here. Or maybe it's a scenario where after looking at the property, there's not, even if it's a great buy, maybe there's not a ton of upside because homes just aren't trading in the area for a ton of money. But maybe I can go get the rent I need to make it worth, being something that I hold on to as like a buy and hold. So that's kind of how I'm thinking about it. Use what's available to you, especially if you're just getting started.
That's a really good way to put it. So from a Fund That Flip perspective, what's the role of the underwriters? Yeah,
so they are literally, in my opinion anyway, they're the backbone of the organization, right? So I like to look at myself. I'm all gas, right? I wake up every morning and I'm like, I have all the money to give you and I want to do all the deals and I'm full speed ahead, and I rely on my underwriting team to be a true sanity check and say like, yeah, Some of these deals, just not every deal that we get brought, we simply cannot finance, or we wouldn't be in business, right? And that really is their role, is to assess risk of asset for the firm. So they're assessing the asset risk as well as the borrower kind of profile risk. So they play a very, very integral role. Like I said, I'm all gas, and they're applying the brake. So
That yin and yang.
yes, absolutely, it's 100% necessary.
Yeah, in business in general, balance is so important.
Yeah.
Like for me, it's my wife. Like I'm the one that's like, let's just do it, and she's like, well, no, let's.
Same.
Let's, I hate. I don't hate it, but I understand it, and actually, it saved my behind on a lot of things.
Man, it's so true. Yeah, it's needed, and that's a fair point. You really do see that kind of opposites attract kind of thing play out in society at large too, but my relationship is very much the same.
Okay.
Yeah.
So let's say we have a borrower that fits your criteria. Mm-hmm. Okay, so walk us through a process.
Yeah.
Like the moment they have all their stuff together, they say, Kyle, I'm ready to do this.
Yep.
What happens next?
So after we've had kind of our conversation and everything that they're saying seems to check out and check all the boxes, what's next is I'm going to generate a term sheet for them to sign. So, hey, I think I can get you this much money at an agreed upon interest rate that we've already agreed upon. Here's how much you'll have for rehab, and we walk through all of the terms of the loan that I think I can go get done. From there, the borrower would sign that term sheet, from which point I am directly introducing them to one of their dedicated closing specialists. So the process kind of goes, borrower sends me a deal, underwrite deal, sell deal, introduced to the closing specialist, who's then going to walk them through the closing process, which is similar to probably what they did to get their conventional mortgage, just expedited. So everything's quicker because we don't need as much stuff. But that would be the process. And then upon the loan being closed, they would also have a dedicated resource on the back end that helps with like draws. And, let's say it's a flip project, right?
Yep.
They're going to have so much money that they're getting from us at closing that goes towards the acquisition of that project. And then on the back end, there's going to be money escrowed that they're going to be able to draw down on to complete their rehab as they make their way through the project.
Okay.
So they would have a servicing person there as well that kind of walks them through that process, helps them with the draws, make sure that the draws gets allocated in a timely manner, setting up, there's a lot that goes into it, setting up like the inspector to come out and say, okay, yes, all the drywall is in fact up in this house. We pull up their scope of work and then release money in correlation to that scope of work for their project.
Okay, so the draws doesn't happen. It's not one lump sum and then they do the work. Do you do it in stages, and that protects
Correct.
that protects FTP, right?
Yes, yeah, you got it.
I'm sorry,
You got
FTF,
it.
yeah.
Yeah. We are, so most lenders in the space are going to do it that way, right? Where it's like as value gets, so we're investing in the value of the project. We're an asset-based lender. So basically if we're doing a deal, that means that we agree that there is upside to this deal and money for everyone, everyone's winning on this deal when we agree to do it. The way we kind of protect that interest is go into a project, there's a certain amount of value, we've got funds to help you increase value. Upon value add or value creation, we then feel good about releasing it in segments. What we're typically looking for is 10-ish% project advancement, first draw, advance the next bit, second draw. Typical deal, you may get somewhere between 3 and 5 draws depending on the size and the scope, all the way up to, we're financing, 21 single family home subdivisions where there's, several draws, 20 plus.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah.
That certainly is. So with all those draws, who manages that? Like, who's the project manager? Is that the person that's getting the draw, or does Fund That Flip provide?
Yeah, we're pretty hands off from the project itself. So like I'm pretty good about following up and checking just to see how things are. Not from a like I want to micromanage your project perspective, but I feel connected to a lot of the loans that I do. So I'm always hoping that my borrowers are knocking it out of the park. Our servicing specialist will kind of check in on a kind of as needed basis. But for the most part, we've done enough vetting of the borrower that once we close that loan, they're managing their project, right? It's their crews. We're not providing any of that. We're relatively hands off, and it's like, hey, just let us know when you need more money. And that's kind of the process there.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
That is, so you're with them the entire way, or are you?
So yes and no. I never, so most of our borrowers we have like a 90+% repeat, like
They come back.
they come back. Exactly.
Yeah, I certainly would too.
Yeah, right. Especially once they see the value, right? So usually, if they're coming to us, they've probably done a few projects and they've probably done it with their own money. So this is like the first taste of like, oh, I really like this because I just got 90% of my project funded, where I was doing 100% out of pocket before. And that's how you scale, right? Like, it's maybe they've done one or two, but then next year they're like, I want to do 8 to 10. It's like, I got you. Like, I have the money for you to do 8 to 10. Here's what we need to do to make that happen. So yeah, I'm involved even after a loan closes. I'm not hip to hip all the time. Like, I'm not calling someone every week or anything, but I try to touch base with the borrowers in my book once every 2.5-ish months.
That makes sense, because these flips, they can take some time.
Yeah. I would say our average loan is going to be somewhere between 6 and 12 months for a fix and flip, and all the way up to like 18 plus for larger new construction and development type projects.
That makes perfect sense. So when it comes to that part of it, the fix and flip, so most of your relationships that you have with your borrowers, they often come back, like you mentioned, like 90%, yes. Right? Yep. So while they're coming back, which area? So what if they are in Cleveland and they find a place in like New York? Would that still? Which areas do you cover? Yeah, so we are in, I think at last count, 32 states. Most of so let's call it like the entire East Coast all the way to Nebraska. And then we're continuing to build and kind of move out west. There's, as you kind of move, some states have like different compliance things that legally have to be met to like start lending in those states. But we're in the process of just doing a blanket, like covering all of the states. Yeah. But right now, Midwest, kind of Great Plains states, all the East Coast, up and down the East Coast, we're lending there. That is dope. That is dope. So let's shift a little bit. Mm-hmm. So after they've completed their flip, they're calling you, now they're seasoned and they're groomed. For each project moving forward, is it the same process for vetting? No. Okay. Good, great question. So one of the things that I think we do really well is we are going to do a little more legwork up front, a little more due diligence, if you will, the first time we're like vetting and talking to a borrower, making sure that they're gonna, check the boxes and there's alignment as far as like what this means, and also like future value add to FTF and also to their business. It's got to be a good fit. We do look at us as like I'm a money partner of all of my borrowers. That's how I look at it. If I can take one thing off my borrower's plate that they don't have to worry about, especially in a kind of up and down rate environment, right? Like an inflationary environment where cost of materials are going up on a sometimes weekly basis. If I can take one piece of stress away from that borrower and say, I got you on the financing, you don't have to worry about that piece. That's what I'm trying to do. After that first deal gets done, it's just an expedited process. The closes are quicker. The underwriter's still going to underwrite each deal the same to make sure that this is in fact a good deal. But aside from that, there's not a ton of like upfront legwork or doc collection that happens every time. So it just becomes a smoother process in general as we get to know your business. That's a that's a big relief because time is always of the essence, right? Yes. Especially in today's market. Mm-hmm. From a flipping perspective, do you think that this is going to be the norm moving forward, or do you think that it's going to peak in valley? I'm expecting the next 3 years, probably not even to be very interesting. I'm almost nervous to even speak out on it, given
the Fed rate raise thing, it's just, there's ripple effects. I don't know what those are going to be. I think we are positioned well given the flexibility we have like with our products in the process of establishing like a 30-year buy and hold loan too. So the way I kind of look at it is there's times in real estate where there's a ton of inventory and it's like a flipper's dream, right? Like they can acquire it cheap and then it appreciates and then you kind of sell it high. Right now what we're seeing is a move where a lot of people are doing new construction and building new because there is a demand for housing. A lot of people are doing real estate, as I mentioned earlier, so what you have is like just a general lack of inventory. So there's, my investors are, there's quite a few that are like gobbling up raw land so that they can develop and build on it and turn their profit that way.
Yeah.
So it's always kind of a, market does this, we all react to what the market does, and people kind of shift their strategies. I see that being the case moving forward. The guys that I work with that are like, this is what they do, they're not going to stop doing it. So if the market changes, they're just going to change and adapt with the market. So having that kind of being malleable and adaptable to the ever-changing environment of real estate is important.
Absolutely, because you're going to pivot, and you have to pivot. Business plans are fluid.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So whether you write your business plan down on a napkin or you put it in Microsoft Word, it's going to change.
Yes.
It's not going to follow itself to a T.
Yeah.
Because I think about the rate hikes. I think we're going to get 7 more
That's
this
what
year.
that's what I was reading. Yeah.
And you think about it from an economic perspective, it's like, holy smokes. I mean, even traditional loans are like 5 points. They just hit 5%. So, man, who knows what this world's going to look like?
It's going to be a wild ride here, I think, over the next 6 to 12 months.
It certainly is.
And even well beyond that, yeah.
Oh, my God. I can't imagine what's going to happen. Or a lot of people are buying the homes now, and they're just going to be, perhaps they're going to be stuck in them. That's the fear. But, I mean,
that's, and hopefully you're not stuck for too long. Like the thing of real estate seems to be somewhat elastic. Like it will eventually bounce back to normal. Right now we're not at normal. Like things are just, everything's appreciated so much that it's almost a necessity. Like the cooling down thing kind of does need to run its course. And then, I mean, it wasn't that long ago. I remember 08, like I remember housing market crash in 08 and thinking like, oh, crazy. And then like total bounce back. We're not even, 10 years later, we're in the hottest real estate market of all time. So like,
it's crazy.
Just being open to the changing market environment and like adapting kind of with it is important.
Yeah, we both were in college at the time.
Yes. Yes.
Lucky us, man.
Yes.
Lucky us.
Lucked out there for sure.
Okay, well from your perspective, let's talk about some flipping strategies.
Okay.
I know we talked about the duplex, right? Mm-hmm. So what do you think is some pretty cool places to look for a home?
I heard one of my investors say something like, you want to find the worst house on the nicest street in any neighborhood or something like that, right?
Yeah.
Like that's a great place to start. But good school systems, right, is great area to look. And then, I mean, we're lucky, honestly, like Cleveland, Columbus, Indianapolis, Pittsburgh.
I love Columbus.
All of those are absolutely like smoking hot markets. And big benefit to that is like the barrier to entry as far as like actual cost of acquiring a property is much lower than if you were in Denver, Colorado, trying to get started doing a fix and flip where you're coming out of pocket $400,000+ just to acquire it before putting any kind of money into it. So, Midwest, great place. Great place to look. But honestly, we're seeing it literally all over. The Carolinas, same thing, just piping hot. Florida is blowing up right now. That's the hottest real estate market in the country. So yeah, I would say to get specific, I would look in, developing neighborhoods near good school systems.
I mean, but it'd be kind of tough, to find those homes. But there's a will, there's a way. You just got to get
there definitely is, and that speaks to kind of like have a good network where maybe you are so in tight with a realtor that you're getting stuff that's not even on the market yet, right? Like having relationships like that. Real estate, being willing to like make the extra phone call, do the extra networking event, and like that is the name of the game when you're building. I feel like any business is like you have to run into it and dive into it, and like that's kind of what you're thinking about. You know, wake up in the morning, it's like, how do I better my real estate career today? And before you go to bed at night, it's like, did I do everything I needed to do to like make sure that I'm getting the properties that come available? I would say too, though, there's like, because everything has appreciated, if you're willing to maybe pay a little more money to like enter, there's some good opportunities. We're also noticing a lot of our investors are selling kind of their portfolios right now for whatever reason. But let's say someone acquired, 10 to 12 kind of single family homes that they have rented out throughout the area. And so maybe it's coming together with some people and like raising the cash, raising the private money and purchasing something like that to get your start. Like that's fine too.
Yeah, like crowdfunding.
Yeah. So there's a lot of, there's not really, I was going to say there's not a bad area to look, but there definitely is areas that if you're looking anywhere where people are living, and not just that, but people have been moving to. So if you look at some of the data in the past year and it's a neighborhood where, yeah, there's been homes sold here, there's probably an opportunity to find something.
Yeah, so a lot of the due diligence and a lot of the research is so important. I mean, but that's just entrepreneurship, period.
Yeah, it is.
In the beginning, it's ugly.
And it is harder out, it is harder to find like fix and flip inventory everywhere you look, which wasn't the case that long ago. Mm-hmm. I'm hearing my investors that are maybe doing, call it like 10 to 15 a month, like those guys this is all they do.
Oh my God.
But they're still complaining, not enough inventory. And it's like,
that's a lot of inventory.
Well, that's also why. It's like, because it's getting gobbled up as soon as it becomes available. But if, again, put in the time, do all like the necessary networking, like meet the people you need to meet to make sure that when opportunities are coming open, you're getting the first look, and then be in a position to strike when you get that look.
Definitely. So let's talk about being in a position to strike. Mm-hmm. Of course, we touched on that in the beginning, right? So we touched on like credit, but typically, is there a percentage that you look for as far as cash reserves that's needed for a home? Let's say if the home is like $100,000 or.
Sure. Simple way to look at it, I think, would be at least 15 to 20% of the acquisition price you'll want to have liquid, as well as enough money to advance to like a first draw if you were to use someone like us, right? So let's say new borrower, hasn't done it before, but we're able to tie back some experience due to a partner or whatever it is. $100,000 acquisition cost. I would want to see like at least $20,000 in the bank, and then also like enough money, like we talked about, to advance from start a project to first draw. So call it like 45-ish K. Okay.
And who determines how much money is going to take for that investor to rehab the home?
So the investors make the judgment call there, right? Like we're experts at like financing projects, right? Not general contractors. So like we'll rely on like the investors to like do their due diligence and like come correct with that. However, what our underwriting team's really good at is taking a look at a scope of work and looking at pictures of a property and determining if the amount of money that we're seeing they're telling us it's going to take is in fact enough to make the project sell for whatever it's supposed to sell for on the back end, right? So the after repair value, you'll hear like ARV in the real estate space a lot. The ARV has to check out, correlate to like the scope of work that we're being provided by the borrower, and that's where my underwriting team would come into play there. But the investor is the one that's going to present us with that scope and say like, this is what I intend to do, and by the time I've done all this, I think it sells for $200K or whatever.
Nice. And then you got your underwriter does what the underwriter does.
Yep. They do their due diligence. They come back. They either say like, yes, you bought this right, and we think it sells for exactly what you're saying. Like we're in agreement on value, at which point like I have no problem getting them the loan they want. The other opportunity, or the other, I guess, scenarios would be underwriter comes back and says, we're off on value a little bit, but not too bad. So like, here's what we think we can get done. Or, hey, not seeing this selling for that. There's no evidence that it would sell for that. Nothing's trading at that level. You'd be setting the market, and then that's a different conversation. But that one happens a little less.
Yeah, because the underwriter is the person that no one really gets to see.
Correct.
But they are the ones that get it done.
They are the magicians. Yeah, yeah.
I love it.
Yep.
Yeah, I absolutely love it. Okay. Well, this is Slice of Pie, and it's all about personal finance and entrepreneurship. So I'm going to ask you a question, and you're just going to give us your answer to this. Give us one of your financial vices.
Vices?
Yeah, just one. We all have them.
Oh, man.
I can go first if you want.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, cool.
I'll hear yours.
Yeah, I have a lot. So one of my financial vices is Avalon Exchange. So it's buying designer things secondhand.
Okay.
So to me, in theory, it's a good idea.
Yeah.
Right? Because you may get a pair of sneakers for well under retail.
Yeah.
Like this shirt I got from Avalon. Yeah, this shirt retails for like $50, but I got it
Okay.
for $30.
Okay.
It was brand new
Yeah.
as well.
Yeah.
But the amount of shopping I do there,
Yeah.
it kind of offsets.
Sure.
So it's to the point where I'll turn on my post notifications on Instagram. So every time they make a post, I get it instantly.
Yeah.
So I'll stop. If I see something I like, I'll stop what I'm doing and I'll buy it.
Yeah.
So that kind of defeats the purpose of trying to be frugal because you're spending so much, but
Yes.
I'm not perfect, and I just want everyone in the world to know that, although we are masters of our craft, we love what we do, but we are human.
Oh, absolutely. In risk of getting in too much trouble, I would say I like sports.
Okay.
Okay. I also like to bet on said sports.
Okay.
And so I enjoy nothing too crazy, but like the NCAA tournament is that's I just had like my best time of the year. It just came and went.
Okay.
So I do some of that. I like to, and I guess in conjunction with that, I'll spend probably more than I should at times on being able to go to the games that I'm invested in. But yeah.
Oh my God.
It's that would be mine for sure.
How do you control the anxiety?
For sure. Try to win more than I lose. No, but like honestly, anything else. I said there's limits to everything that I do. So it's like everything in moderation, including moderation, right? So it's like never allowing myself to go above kind of the structure that I have in place for some of those things that I like to do for fun. Checks and balances, if you will. But
Absolutely.
yeah, I suppose too, I'm not an overly anxious person when it comes to money. I kind of wake up with the mindset of like, again, it's everywhere. Like the entire economy is so saturated with money right now that in my head, I'm like, if I happen to like lose a lot of money, I feel like I could get it back. Right. And so that helps alleviate, whether that's true or not, by the way, like it helps with the anxiety piece of like, hey, it's going to be okay. I will figure out a way to like work this back.
The mindset of a hustler.
Yes.
Yes, sir. All right, man. Final tip for someone that's want to get started. They got the anxiety, all the pressure. They don't know what's going on. What would you advise them to do?
You have to be willing to kind of push your chips into the center of the table. And that doesn't mean it's like, I'm going to go like start house hacking tomorrow without having the money to do so. Like that literally could be go to your first, like get off the couch, go to the first real estate meetup, right? And then like next week, try to go to 2 real estate meetups and like also make a few calls, like find out who the realtors are in the area, the wholesalers. So like do something today that pushes that business forward in a positive trajectory, and then do a little more than the previous day every day, and you'll get where you want to get.
Love it. I absolutely love it. So my final tip would be is to plan. Write it down. It's going to be fluid. It's not going to work out. It may work out, it may not, but plan. And you got to take the risk. You'll never know if your parachute will open unless you take the jump.
Absolutely.
Cool. Well, thank you, man.
Man, thanks for having me. This is cool.
Wonderful. My outros are always awkward, so I don't know where he's going to cut it, but he just got it.